So welcome to everybody. My name's Amanda O'Shea from the Serendipity Experience, and introducing my lovely friend Jacqui Bull from the Serenity Practice. Jacqui, how are you today? It's lovely,
I'm
lovely, lovely.
really well. It's snowing here. I don't know. It's snowing at this moment, and it's snowing quite heavily. I don't know if you've seen it, but I was in the UK, but it's properly snowing. So it's
I saw
very,
it
very
today.
lovely, but very, very cold. So
Yeah. No, I saw it today actually. I was with a client and they showed me out their window. So Jacqui and I have got together and we have decided that we are going to do some projects, run a retreat, run a podcast called Lost for Words. And we got brought together because we both met being iHeart facilitators. That's been wonderful. But we are both also independent modern celebrants. And Jacqui, your title is how do you explain yourself? Would you just introduce yourself?
well, my business is called A Place for Ceremony, and it is all about kind of putting ceremony and ritual into your lives. And that, I mean, we could even just look at the ritual of having a lovely cup of tea with a biscuit. But if we take it further, just bringing that back, because it's kind of like sits with all of our ancestors as far as they literally brought ritual into everything. And so I work from a funeral perspective. I'll be involved in weddings. So any ceremony that you feel sort of like any transitional moment in life that could have a ceremony put around it, I will craft and create a personal ceremony with spirituality, without it, whatever it needs to look like for you, and whatever speaks to you will be part of that. So that's sort of the role that I take. And I think you're very similar in that, aren't you?
Yes, it's lovely. So Jackie's in London, very close to where my brother lives, actually. So that's nice. And I'm in Spain. And yeah, and I think I was inspired by you, actually, Jacqui. I think that was, that inspiration, hearing about you and what you did, and suddenly just ended up doing, becoming the training. So training for weddings and for funerals, and the same. Really wishing to bring. Being comfortable talking about love and being comfortable talking about loss, it feels like we're in the right place to be doing those roles. And today we just thought that we would talk a little bit about, we're setting up together then some little projects, and we've decided to call that Lost for Words. And so that's really 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 nice, and she'll be hearing more about that soon. Or if you're listening to this way down the line, you might have already heard lots about it. But I wanted to talk today because I've just had a huge experience this weekend where I have lost my beautiful dog Tommy, who's 14 years old. He died on Sunday. So he passed away really, really peacefully at home, naturally. And it was beautiful. And I think, I was telling Jacqui the story about that, and I said I would actually, we're both at this stage, aren't we, with our dogs, and you've got a dog that's kind of
My
um,
dog's really old, and my lovely Stanley and your lovely Tommy. Obviously Tommy's now left us, but Stanley is he can't really walk, and so there's so much synergy between what was happening. And when
yeah,
over the last few weeks you've been telling me more about your lovely dog and what's been happening with him, I've been really sort of getting the feeling of, and finding myself quite upset when you've been talking about it, because I know that's coming for me,
right,
and watching where my thinking goes, because that can bring me to tears in the idea of it. So as soon as I move to it, I can be quite sad, and then sort of like when I bring myself back to the present, I'm like, and I'm just really grateful I have him at this moment. So
yeah,
there was this real kind of like, when you've been talking about it, I've been watching myself swaying between the kind of like, oh my
yeah,
goodness, I'm going to lose my dog, and then back, and then you've had this experience of losing.
yeah. And it is, and I think so. What we both having, it feels like we have quite in common, is that, or why we want to talk about loss, we want to talk about death, we want to talk about dying, we want to talk about all stages of life. We want to talk about how we're designed for life. We're designed to live, and we're designed to die, and bring these sort of subjects, which seem to be quite difficult for a lot of people to talk about. And what we found is that the words that come into these experiences are words such as joy and excitement and a gift. And they're not words that people might associate with death and dying. And so we just thought we'd have a little chat today, and I thought I'd love to share the story and of what happened with Tommy, and how close that is, and like today I can talk about it like you say, and I really do have peace in my heart, and I'm smiling and I feel relieved and all of that stuff. And yet, in another moment, the lump in the throat can be there, and the tears in the eyes, and it just catches me differently. But what is it that you see, Jacqui? What do you see around this subject that you'd like to share? What is it that you see about um, why people don't wish to talk about this sort of stuff? That's what you'd sort of. It's all a bit like, oh, you don't really talk about that, or what is it that you've seen so much about this subject of us passing away or moving on,
Well, I
whatever.
think I mean, like my experience. There's two things I want to share. One was going into the vets with my dog Stan, who she sort of gave me some drugs, and the vet even. And this is a long-winded answer to kind of what you're asking me, which is she's standing there and she goes, so you can have these drugs for him. They'll sort of deal with his pain, but the next thing is that he's now chronically ill, and probably the next time we see you in the vets, it will be, and I went, you mean it will be to put him down? And she went, yes, yes, yes. And I thought that's interesting. Even the doctor couldn't even use the words that my dog is dying, And actually, I did hear in the medical profession, I think I read the most beautiful book, which I can't remember the name of right now. I read the most beautiful book about a palliative care doctor. And she was saying that the word dying has only actually come into, like, being diagnosed with dying has actually only recently entered kind of like the medical profession, as you are able to say someone's dying, because the whole focus was on how to keep them alive.
Right.
And so if you think about that, that's permeated society in such a way that it means that, death is something we're scared of. We do everything to fight stuff rather than seeing it as just part of life. And I think for both of us, and what we've both seen in this, is that there's an intelligence systems that are running through the whole of life. And our intelligence system, the body that we get to live in for the entire time we're here, and that at some point that body dies, in the same way as a leaf falls from a tree in winter. It's all the same cycle.
Mm.
And getting to a place where you're able to accept that rather than seeing that you need to fight against it is what I've seen. And therefore, in the acceptance of that, I've realized something so beautiful, because I'm able to live in the moment. Not always, as I shared when you were telling me the story about when you talk about Tommy, I've been sort of like, oh, he's going to die, Stan, he's going to die. And then I come back to, but of course he is. And actually, aren't I lucky that I've got him at this moment?
And there is something so lovely, and this whole, like you say, taboo subjects. There's lots of taboo subjects in our kind of modern day, right? That things that we just don't talk about. But I think really, I'm so grateful for the understanding that I have in life. I'm so grateful for the way that I see that energy doesn't die. There's that lovely, quote. And I was recently, when I was at a funeral, I was talking about I'd been into a school to deliver the iHeart program, and there's a young boy in there who was talking about sometimes he doesn't sleep because he's thinking about dying. It was quite a deep conversation for a 10-year-old, and he said to me, and one of the other boys was sort of saying, but do you know that we learned in science that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It's just there. And I was talking about this as I was talking, at this funeral, and I was saying, I love that, because that resonates with me so much. It just changes. That's how I see it. It just changes form. But actually seeing that, it is quite, and I've had that gift before, to be present when somebody has passed away. And for me, it is a gift, the same as it's a gift to watch somebody come into life and be present at birth. And actually seeing the life almost like as we know it, as in the heartbeat, as in for that, to see that change in the body from literally, either 1 minute to the next. and it's obviously seconds. And so what I was saying was, I would love to be able to say that Tommy died in my arms, you know, because that is like that romantic version of, I'd like to say a lot of things in my life happened differently, but it's just not the way it was. So whilst he was at home, and he did go naturally and peacefully, and I could hear his breathing was very heavy. I woke up about 6:30, just 2 days ago on Sunday morning, and I came down and just was with him, laid with him, and at 9:30, about that time, he got up to have a drink. Um, and I opened the door up and I popped to the loo myself, and it was while I was in the loo that when I came out, he was gone, you know. And so seeing that, I'd been with him and I'd heard him because his breathing was heavier than normal, let's just say. And then he's walking around getting the water, and then he's gone. And it's like from this aliveness inside to suddenly that, wow. And there was a bit of an intrigue in that. There's an intrigue in that. How, like, where has that gone? You know, where has that gone? And obviously it was beautiful, and I stayed there with him for about 3 hours, and he was still warm, and rubbing him and around him, and we had a little ceremony around him, and drank tea and ate porridge, and, you know, lit a candle, and it was really, really lovely. And and that thing of life, that thing of, like you say, that we are now, whether we're talking, crying, laughing, skipping, moaning, groaning, complaining, whatever it is we're doing, they're all expressions of our life. And then suddenly there's just silence and peace.
Mhm.
And all that breathing, all that noise, all that sound, all of that action, all of that movement is just back to the silence,
Mhm.
from which all that noise comes.
But then there's something so beautiful in that, because I think that's the thing that we have discovered, which is that silence, that kind of pure kind of energeticness that we talk about, we're not sure once the body's gone where the energy's gone. That is pure kind of well-being and like beautiful peace kind of state. That's available to us all the time, when the moaning, the complaining, the kind of, but that actually can be there. You can put all of that moaning and complaining and effectively thinking to one side, and actually just be left with exactly what is that kind of pure kind of consciousness life stuff, which is just pure. And actually I think that's what this seeing the world through this frame allows us to see, that like that is available for the two of us in this conversation, just pure peace.
Yeah.
You know, and that Tommy is still with us in that energetic space. He might not be in form anymore, but you know, he's still in our mind. He's been brought to life in this conversation.
Yeah.
There's a joy about him. He brings a smile to our face. You know, he's
Yeah.
not even here in form anymore, but yet he is here. So,
Yeah.
so there's a beautiful
And,
part of
and it is, and that joy, you know, as I'm talking, I was, like, you know, saying about the last week where Tommy really slowed down the last week more than any other week. So I've known for a few months, I've known really, maybe for a year, there's been a shift where he quietened down a bit, you know, where he didn't go on big, massive walks, blah, blah. But that joy of this week, actually, where he couldn't walk and suddenly he walked into the kitchen, was like the biggest and most amazing thing ever. And it's like, oh my goodness. And that joy really looks like it comes from Tommy. Now, I know that joy is what is inside of me. I know that Tommy doesn't have the power actually to make me feel joyful or to make me feel sad, that it's my thinking about Tommy that does so. But just knowing that all of these beautiful feelings are inside of me, from the depths of sadness to the height of joy, you know, it's all there for experiencing. And that's what we want to talk about in these conversations. So I think I'm gonna leave it there.
And before you do, I just wanted to share something which came up, because my son, I was on a walk with him the other day, and he turned around to me and he said, "Mum, did you know that people with Alzheimer's, they've proved that just before they die, their brain is completely able to work again. There's a moment just before death, and I've heard that story so many times, where just before death, you know, we are sort of whole again. You know, like there's this energy. And just even with Tommy walking back in, I'm just going to have some water, I'm absolutely fine, I can walk again. There's just this wholeness that turns up just before death. And that in itself, and the beauty of the system, just goes to show how kind of like wonderfully perfect it is and intelligent it is, that it brings us back together at the end. It doesn't, you know, we haven't fallen apart. Right at the end, we're whole again. I just think there's something beautiful in that.
It's gorgeous, and we're going to be talking about lots of expressions of this. So if you've got anything that you'd love to talk about, or you indeed want to come and talk to us about it, we're going to be having guests on our talks, on our show, if you like. We want to explore all avenues, and you know, both of us come from a wealth of experience, so we'll be sharing our experiences with you and inviting you to do the same with us. So thank you, Jacqui. A beautiful conversation as always. And love to you, and love to everybody that's listening. And that's me over and out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.